Welcome back to Spectora Spotlight. I am your host, Carla Heatherly, and today we're talking about something every inspector cares about: building a strong, sustainable business. I'm joined by someone who spends every day helping inspection company owners find clarity, build better systems, and actually enjoy running their businesses. Mark Hummel with Inspection Empire Builder. Mark has more than 20 years of leadership and team building experience, thousands of hours of coaching and public speaking, and a mission to create impact that creates impact. We're keeping this grounded and actionable today, focusing on what inspectors need to grow this year. So let's get into it. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone who hasn't met you yet, how do you describe the work you and IEB do in this industry?
Well, first, it's an honor to be back on the Spectora podcast with you. And I just find this to be such a fun way to share with the entire industry what we're doing and what we're all about. And so thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. And to answer your question, the short version for Inspector Empire Builder is that we believe in building people up to be the business owner that their business needs. And so a lot of times what that means is folks in our technician-minded industry come to us looking for help with their business, and we have to help them think in a different way, right? Make that transition from thinking like a technician and growing their business like a technician to thinking like a true entrepreneur strategist, somebody who can develop the skills and develop the strategies and put in the reps to build an actual business at whatever size, solopreneur, enterprise level, and everything in between.
Great. So at your recent fall mastermind conference, and I've been fortunate enough to attend the last two conferences in 2025, and they were just amazing. It was such great information. But what I took away from the fall mastermind conference, clarity was the big theme. What is the most common pattern you see that keeps inspection businesses stuck?
Man, there's so many things, honestly, but to summarize them, I find a lot of people have trouble with a very specific pain point. And I'm going to give you two quick thoughts and then I'll tell you what the pain point is. The first thought is that a lot of us understand the power of having something like a vision, right? This picture of what we want our life and our business to look like in the future. And there's all kinds of exercises out there and things you can learn to craft a vision and to put one in place for your life. And I think that's important that you have a life vision so that your business has a reason to excel rather than just a business vision. But that's one thing. So people have trouble with creating a vision and kind of understanding what that looks like. And really what that means is they don't know how to answer the question, what do I want? What do I actually want out of my life? And what do I actually want my business to do to help me get there? That's one thing. The other thing is when we finally have a vision, people don't know what to do with the next 10 minutes of their time. And so we get stuck in this chaotic loop of operational tasks, growth work, doing inspections. And before you know it, we can spend years focusing on the things that need to be done right now in our business and never actually move toward our vision, whatever that looks like, right? And so that's probably the thing that gets people stuck the most is understanding how to even answer the question in the first place. What do I want? And then turning that into a strategic map that they can follow, actually put one step in front of the other and know what to do in the next 10 minutes.
So would you say that would it be fair to say then that without the vision, you have the nuts and bolts of a business, but there's no unifying vision, for lack of a better word, like that the nuts and bolts of a business and going through the steps of building a business, the building blocks don't matter without the strong foundation and that a vision provides?
Maybe. And that's a weird answer, but I'd say maybe because a lot of people actually do build business to sometimes an impressive degree, and they have no idea where they are going. They don't know, what kind of team they're building or what they're doing in their market or what their plans are going to be 2 years from now, let alone today. They're just succeeding because there happens to be opportunity in their market. And so we actually do run into a lot of people in the coaching world that have sort of stumbled their way into success. But what oftentimes happens is at some point you start to slip and you start to realize I've got to think in a different way. I've got to become a more efficient entrepreneur. I've got to understand business better. And whether you do that on your own through learning, podcast, books, being around smart people, or jump into something like coaching, the answer is the same. You need somebody or something to help you get clear with the action. So it's one thing to have clarity with the vision, but clarity with the action that actually walks you toward it is a whole different thing. And for that, we say we want to help people develop the skill of just being clear enough to take action. And that's where they get stuck too, right? And so the opposite of that is you would think that the opposite of that is I just don't take action. I don't feel clear, so I don't do anything. But it's actually that we do everything if we're not clear, right? So we just start doing anything we can do. And so we create these big, busy worlds and everything feels heavy and everything feels important. And we're not necessarily clear with what the most important things are. And so we feel very active. And this is what we call the burnout recipe, by the way, burnout cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just doing everything because all we know to do is take action. We don't know what the right actions are, but we know to take action. And so could you imagine thousands of people in our industry are doing this right now? All they know is that the answer to all of their problems is something like more inspections,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, I can't pay my bills. I need more inspections. Okay, that probably is true to some degree. My systems and processes are terrible in my business. The answer must be more inspections. Maybe not. Or perhaps, I am good at relationships and capturing agents, but I'm not holding on to anybody. The answer is just more inspections. Probably not, but this is how we think as technician-driven entrepreneurs. The answer is always the thing we're best at. And most of us as technicians are best at being a technician. And so that's how we respond to things. And so if we were going to look at the industry and say, well, what do we do about this? How do we solve it? It's always going to be about stopping what we're doing, evaluating how we've gotten where we are, what we're doing, and then purposefully crafting a strategy going forward, which is something that's very easy to say, but people struggle a lot with it, which is where things like coaching and masterminding and all that come into play.
All right. So I have, I've been working in this industry for over 10 years, and I know it really resonates with me. Like what I've heard at IB conferences and also what you just said is people are always looking for that the one thing or the 12 things that are going to get them from this level to the next level. And like you said, it's kind of throwing a bunch of things at the wall to see what sticks, but without intention behind that and a strategy behind that. What I've seen myself historically is sometimes the people who like do fewer things but master those and do those better and build with intention are the ones who end up being successful, and they're not working harder than other people. They're making smarter choices to get them in a better place with their business.
100%. That's absolutely true. In fact, even in our coaching, one of the things we talk about as a coaching team and as content development is to continually pull people back to the basics, because the basics are simple and simplicity scales. What we do as people is we constantly try to make things as complex as we can, not necessarily on purpose, but I believe it's because we feel good when we accomplish hard things. And so we kind of subconsciously try to make everything hard. Let's put 10 steps into this process when there should be 3.
And it feels like more of a win if you can do a little tick mark for that real hard thing you did.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so what happens over time is we get really good at accomplishing complex things. And so that becomes self-affirming. So we keep going after complex things. Well, in the coaching world, the companies that we see scaling the fastest, or even just enjoying business ownership to a higher degree, are the ones who are continually focused on those basics. And
Mhm.
then the question, of course, is, well, what are those basics? Yeah.
I was just going to ask you. So I agree, and that actually like leads up into my next question for you, which what foundational pieces do you believe matter most for building a strong inspection business? And if you're open to expanding on that, what does a healthy business actually feel like day to day? I could go back to the other one. What foundational pieces matter most for building a strong inspection business?
Yeah, I love it. I love both those questions. So the first one I think is more strategic, and let's tackle that first. So what are the foundational pieces? One of the things we teach in IEB is that we've got to have a business model that we're following. And I can tell you what it looks like for most people who enter into the industry, because there are low barriers to enter our industry, right? Go get trained, grab your truck, your tools, and go do the job. That's a pretty low barrier to get into the industry. Because of that, people oftentimes get in without having fully counted the cost. They don't really know what it's going to take. They just know to get in there and try. And then they eventually realize that they don't really have any structure in place, and they're just kind of building a job for themselves. And so one of the first pieces to understand is that there has to be a business model that you're actually following. And there's a really smart service-based business model called the SOG model, or SOG, for service operations growth. And that's a very common model in service-based businesses. But what we've done is we've just kind of adapted it to home inspections. And that's what we teach a lot of times in IEB is the service operations growth model. So for anybody listening, if you can start to think about your business in terms of those divisions, even if you're alone as a solopreneur, especially if you have a team of people, you want to start thinking about the systems and the processes that live within each of those divisions of your business, right? So when you're doing inspections or bringing in business, when you're providing your service, that's the better way to put it, then you're working within your service lane, right? And so the good way to think about that is if you're making money, you're working within your service lane. If you're bringing in new business, meaning you're going out capturing agents, maybe you're cold calling, maybe you're tweaking the website to be a better lead gen, campaign driven thing, or whatever it is, that's all in your growth division. And then a lot of your back end repetitive stuff is operations. And the reason it's so important to think about this as a business model, think about your business as a business model, is because that leads to all kinds of really great things for you. One of which is that you can imagine sort of building it for somebody else. Well, someday I might want to not do the growth part of my business and I'll hand that hat off and give it to somebody else. And so I'll build out those systems and processes in the growth lane so that I can do that. Or maybe someday I don't want to be answering my phones. And so I need to kind of write out my process for that. And then I can hand that hat off to somebody else. And now I have a really great description of what I want that person to do. You're going to be my operations person, as opposed to my catch-all assistant, which is what we normally do if we don't have clarity in our business. So I could go on, but the business model is one of the most foundational and important pieces to understand. And then from there, we could put systems, processes in place. But eventually where we want to go is smart financial management of our business. And so for a lot of companies out there, they're doing what we call bank account accounting, meaning they look in their bank account and if there's money, they're happy. It's like, woohoo, I'm making money. I'm doing awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no money in the bank account, it's like, oh no, I better go do some growth work and get my business going again. This roller coaster is really, really common. But if we're looking at our business using a business model, then we start to get to say things like, well, how much do I want to bring in, right? So what kind of service and how much of it do I need to do in my service lane in order to bring in the revenue I want? And then as a percentage of revenue, how much do I want to spend on the service and the operations and the growth lane? So you can kind of start to see how your business model not only leads to smart systems and processes, but it leads to a budget that you can actually manage as well. But now I'm going to throw in one thing, which is a lot of people who are solopreneurs or very small teams, they don't really see the importance of having a budget. And so I'm just going to give one important reason to have a budget. If you are not operating with a budget, a lot of people experience seasonality in their business or ebbing and flowing where, the
Mm-hmm.
business is up, the business is down, up, down, up, down. And this causes just mental chaos. It just freaks us out sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was
Yeah.
actually going to say that the seasonality of this business, if the roller coaster that you're on is checking your bank account for how well you're doing, and you go into a slower time, like for a lot of different areas, that would be now through February or so, right? And if your metric on the health of your business is, how well you're doing, then you're going to feel pretty bad right around the holidays when you want to feel good.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And then if you have a team of people, we see this a lot. If you don't have really smart financials and you've got a team, now you're asking yourself, well, how do I hold on to all these guys while
Mm-hmm.
we're not doing work? Or I'm going to lose them in the slow season if I can't do something for them. And that something will look different from company to company. That's a different conversation. A very responsibly managed business, small business, will have something like 3 to 6 months of operating reserves set aside, right? The same thing you should do in your personal life, 3 to 6 months of bills saved. And so when you have something like that off of a budget, which you wouldn't know what that number is unless you have a budget, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have something like that and you have a business account with cash sitting in it so that you can use it when an opportunity pops up or when it's time to grow and hire somebody and train them, or even if your market takes a dip and you don't have to freak out quite as much. What that
Mm-hmm.
leads to, because we're no longer making fear-based decisions in our business, things that are like, oh my gosh, I got to act now no matter what, right? And instead we can say, okay, we're just going to stick to the plan. We see that business is dipping a little bit. We're going to go to our growth plan. We're just going to keep doing it, but we don't have to freak out because we've got a model in place. We've got a budget. We've got cash in the bank. We're good. I'll tell you, if people would just do that, put the business model in place, get away from bank account accounting, use a budget, then there would be a wave of change in our industry with people who are able to stay in the industry longer, who are able to invest in their company at a higher level. And I think there would be a lot more people who enjoy the process as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something else that a takeaway that I got from this, and I'm not sure if you use this exact word, but having those scalable systems in place,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not you might start off as a solo inspector wearing all the hats, but you need to make sure that someone else can put that hat on. So you need to make sure that your systems are scalable. And when you are able to hire, and I'm saying when, not if, because I believe everyone has the opportunity to grow their business to where they can hire people, right? And be a multi inspector firm. That the scalability of the foundational pieces that you're putting in place uh, make them scalable. And know it's tough. I mean, I'm guilty myself of like being a yes person. Like, yes, I can do everything, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hold up, how did I end up with like every hat? And it's like, oh, because I like
Yep.
raised my hand and volunteered. So I think that I can identify with that, on a personal level. But I think an important takeaway from the foundational piece, in addition to having the business plan, and is having those systems that are scalable, so that when you grow, you can plug people into those. They're already built. You're not just like, oh my god, you know. And I think that
Yeah.
that to me, that is something that I hope everyone listening, scalable and repeatable is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. We could spend all day talking about how
I
important that
know.
is and then go into actually giving people action steps. But I want to throw something in here that I've learned personally over the
Okay.
last 5 years, which is that sometimes we lose a very large portion of our industry when we start talking about team building and scaling, because there are a lot of people who do just want to be on their own. They want to be
Hmm.
solopreneurs. And we have coaching for every stage of business that there is in IEB, including solopreneurs. So here's what I've learned from doing that. Solopreneurs need to hire somebody as well. Unless you
Hmm.
just love pulling your hair out when you're busy, like you should hire somebody too. And that person could be as simple as a VA who takes some of your tasky, repetitive things off of your plate so that you can just focus on doing a great job and keeping your business coming in the growth lane. And so
And by VA, do you mean virtual assistant?
I do, yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, just to be
Yep.
clear to people in the back here who might not know that acronym.
Yep. Good catch. Yeah. So virtual assistants are a really great tool right now. It's all the
And
latest
they're
rage for people.
so easy to find too.
Yes. Yeah. And so even if you never plan to hire somebody, putting this model in place, using a budget, and then getting a VA to help you in your business is so beneficial to your life. And so I just wanted to throw that in there because I think when we're team builders and we know we're going to build a team, we're thinking a little differently than we are if we're going, I just want to get enough to pay my bills and be comfortable and that's it. Nothing wrong with that as a vision. But still, you can live a really, really joyful, not busy life, making tons of money as a solopreneur if you do it right and get some help.
No, exactly. And I agree completely. There are some people who, a lot of people come into this industry semi-retired or shifting careers or coming from like a contractor background, and they don't want a team of people. They just want to be responsible for themselves and what they're doing. But that's a very good point that you can still do that, but having even just a part-time virtual assistant to help take care of some of just takes things off your plate and help keep you organized can certainly make being in business, for yourself with you as the primary, lead and an inspector can still take a whole lot of weight off of your day.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yep.
All right, so let's shift into systems and leadership for a moment. What is one? I'm sure you have many, but what would you say is the most important leadership habit that instantly changes the direction of a business?
Easy answer. So, the most important thing you can do as a leader is understand that you are not special. You are not superhuman. You need help just like everybody else. You need a system in place to keep you pointed the right direction, to keep you saying no to the things that shouldn't be on your plate. And you've got to make sure that this is a repeatable system because
Mm-hmm.
everybody can, all of us, we can do really well for a period of time. And then we all start to kind of break down, maybe even burn out a little bit, lose focus on what's most important. And so we need to have a repeatable system that kind of keeps us accountable to what we said was important. And we call that a personal operating system. There are many different versions of it out there, but one that I love to teach is to have a 1, 3, and 5 year vision, which is really simple. It's the answer to the question, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? And because
Mm-hmm.
of that, what should it look like in 3 years? And because of that, what should it look like in 1 year? So that's the starting point. Then from there, we ask, well, what do I need to be doing in order for all of that to become true? And so we break a 1 year period down into what I call your strategic plan, your 1 year strategic plan. And from there, you have your annualized goals, right? I want to get this much money from my business. I want to read this many books. I want to go to the gym this many times, or I want to become this person. You can annualize all of your goals, break them down into quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily rhythms. And so this might sound very big and robust, but what we do with people is we walk them through this so that they can put it in writing. Here's what I want in 5 years. Now we're going to plan all the way backwards to how I spend my day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
So
the
get
most
it
important thing.
granular.
That's a great word. Yep. Getting it granular so that we can address that pain point we started with, which is we can think far out, but it's hard to know what to do in the next 10 minutes.
Well, so this is interesting. I was watching this really neat show about this biologist who became a parent to a bunch of wild turkeys. And this is like kind
Huh.
of random.
Interesting.
But where this comes in is he said one of the biggest takeaways that he got from it is to never, uh, that they taught him to be in the moment and not to betray the moment.
Hmm.
And it kind of made me think of that when you were saying that. And the term granular is, focus on what is in front of you right now. So you can start with 5 years, 3 years, but really the only moment that you ever have is the moment like right now. And what you're choosing to do every day. So if it's easier to step back from like, people who are like, oh, I don't know, a 5 year plan seems like a lot, or 3 years or a year. It's, I think to kind of flip that into, or what do I do with each moment? And every year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years is just a series of moments that you're present for and that you're choosing to show up for.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually really agree with that quite a bit. Year 5, it's not real. Year 3, it's not real. Year 1, it's not real. Really, we're just trying to give ourselves direction with how to spend today. And right. And so that's the big takeaway I think people are missing, which is that we can put this stuff way up in the clouds and make it feel so weighty that we can never even pull it off, right? A vision 5 years from now. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to optimize who we are today, this week, like what we're going to get
Mm-hmm.
done. Now, I'll tell you, if we don't do the vision work, though, what we oftentimes will do is whatever feels important in the moment. And that's cool to some degree. There's some great things that happen there, but at the same time, that's where we see people spending years doing things that don't actually get them doing anything other than working. I'm just
They're not
working.
working towards a greater something. And that's why I like the idea of, like, as you were talking about, kind of backing into it is, if you have like the big goal in 5 years, and then, well, where do you need to be in 3 years? Or then what should you do this year? Like, that is makes the 5 years seem a little easier to get to when you're able
Hmm.
to kind of outline those steps. And I, I know that the hustle is real of, you know, the inspections. And, I have talked to so many stressed out inspectors, especially this time of year, because that's typically when inspections do slow down in many markets. And that's when they start looking at their business instead of just doing, booking inspections and going through everything. This is when they start looking at their business, and it's when they start looking at their website for maybe the first time in a year, and when they start getting the emails from SEO people saying, I'll get you to number one on Google for $400. And I'm like, absolutely do not do that, sir.
Yep. Yep.
uh, so I think that this I think this is a very timely episode, because hopefully people have the time to listen to it and the time to actually think about it. Um, so one thing that I one thing that I hear from owners a lot and from inspectors a lot is they're they feel like there's a bottleneck. And sometimes I want to be like, I think it's you. So how does someone know if they've become the bottleneck in their own company?
Are you referring to the owner of the company? Like, how do
I'm
they know
re-
if they know?
yes, I'm referring to, because I would say a lot of people are solo inspectors, and or they might have one or two other inspectors. How have you seen? Is this, first of all, is this new to you? um,
Well, let me give you some grace. And so maybe you can just take this clip out and keep it in your pocket anytime you need
okay,
it.
okay,
Business owner, you are the bottleneck. I don't care how
okay.
efficient you are. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done in your life. You're always the bottleneck as the
I
top
think we
person in
should
your
keep this
business.
in.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, you send this to people, do whatever you want, just this soundbite, because you are the bottleneck every single time, no matter what. It doesn't matter how great you are, because everything filters to you from the bottom and from the top. You're always going to be the bottleneck. And that's a terrible thing if you are really inefficient, unclear, don't know what you're doing in business. But it's a really beautiful thing if you are efficient, you're clear, and everything passes through you and is better on the other side because of it. But not many people,
Want to hear that?
not only do they not want to hear that, but they're not really an efficient bottleneck. Because really, what do we think about a bottleneck is really just a constraint, right? It's a point where everything chokes together and slows down.
Hmm.
And because there is one leader of every company, or bigger companies have one leader in a division, the leader is always the bottleneck. Decisions come to them, they've got to act, they've got to do things. So we don't want to say that a bottleneck by itself is terrible, although we do want to eliminate bottlenecks to the degree that we can. We just need to reframe the way we think about it and think about it more as a filter, right? Things come to this critical juncture where now a person, a human, you get to decide what to do with these things. And your job is not to just run a business, right? And so with this filter, with this moment, this bottleneck ability that you have, your job is to make the business better as often as possible. Not just run it, not just make sure it never goes away, but make it better as often as possible. So every time you perceive that you've slowed something down or you become the bottleneck in your business, we shouldn't be thinking, well, crap, I'm the bottleneck again. Here we go. Everything's terrible. It's slow. It's clunky. It probably is for a lot of us. Instead, we should be thinking, what a great opportunity. Let's make sure this is never this painful again. Let's improve it.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And I think that, that can go kind of across industry. I mean, that is great advice for anyone, anywhere, in any business. Is if you're in a position where stuff can get clogged with you, I think it's your responsibility to make sure that the people that need the information that you have or the decisions that you need to make are the ones that's what you're getting away from you, because that's enabling your employees, and that is giving them the power they need to move forward. And it's a good learning experience too.
sure. Yeah, so you're so right too. This is universal. This is any industry, this is any leader. And there are all kinds of tools. Like if somebody was to just Google, or do you do Google anymore? If you were to jump onto
Yes.
your AI of
Or just
choice,
AI something, GPT something.
yep. I never thought I would have to think through that. Thought it was just going to be Google things forever. But wherever you go, if you were to just look up a bottleneck analysis, like that's a really common tool for people in business to use to determine whether or not you are positively affecting your business or you are negatively affecting your business. And this should not be a surprise, but most of us are negatively affecting our business because we're holding on to processes that we should be delegating, because we are not refining things. We're just going through the same clunky, inefficient process with things over and over again. Or even, this is common too, we're not writing anything down. And so we're
Hmm.
reinventing the process every time we have to go through it. Those are the
Right.
kind of things that create the bottleneck in the first place.
Right. No, I agree. So, we are headed through the holidays and into a new year. And I find that, this is a time when, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, even though it's being redundant, but when people really start looking at their business, and there is something about the new year where they're like, outside of the holidays, and what can I do, to make this my best year ever? If an inspector wants this year to look different from last year, what's the very first move they should make?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a couple of answers here. One is something practical because I want people to be able to take something away and just go do it right now on their own. So the first thing is you should really carve out about 90 minutes to be in what we call flow, right? Which is basically just undistracted, uninterrupted time. You just want to carve out some time to have no distractions and ask yourself some tough questions, because we need to understand how we performed this year. Did I do the things I said I was going to do? Did I stick to the plans I created, or was I just creating new plans all the time? Did things feel good because I was a good strategist, or did they feel crazy and chaotic and all over the place because I never sat down to think about anything? Did I hit the numbers that I wanted to hit? Did I build and maintain the relationships that I said I would or that I should have? And really just evaluate how you're doing and how you've done, right? Because we need to get to a very clear picture of who we are and how we're showing up for our business right now. And so in that 90-minute period, you'd spend probably the first third of it or maybe half of it doing that, just evaluating where you are. Now, on the other side of that, we want to start answering the question of what we want in 2026. Now, I hear all kinds of answers, right? Sometimes people say things like, well, I want to get 150% growth in my business. And it's like, well, have you done that before? Like, let's slow down. Let's talk about how to set a real goal, right? A really good goal is going to be something that stretches you and is realistic. And so we have to understand our past performance in order to understand what we can realistically expect out of 26. That's why we start with let's understand how we've performed so far. But then, like, remove all the limits. Think about 2026. Think about what you want to accomplish in your service lane, your operations lane, your growth lane with your budgets. Think about if you want to hire anybody, and just give thought to it. And then when you've thought about it, write it down. I know this sounds really, really simple, but there's all kinds of research on this that just the act of sitting down and thinking through these things can take you that direction. And then the act of writing these things out, which I'm a fan of physically writing because it forces you to complete your thought. And so physically writing these things down makes you even more likely to go accomplish these things. And then because you've got them written down, you may as well back up the year and create a strategic plan to accomplish it. So that's just kind of a practical exercise we use in coaching all the time, which is just sit down, pause, reflect, and set an intention for the next period. Those are the 3 steps, by the way: pause, reflect, set an intention. And I'm just talking about it on a more macro level for setting goals for 2026. The second thing people can do, and I'd really encourage them to do it, is to not be alone. The people who are either in a community, whether it's coaching or community with us in IEB, or maybe one of the other amazing groups like Mike Crow or IGO or anybody else, all of us are awesome in the industry. Just don't be alone. And so the research is clear on this, but my own experience is clear on this too. The people I see who are together stay more excited about their business and more clear about their business than the people who are alone. And excitement about what you're doing is one of the key indicators of success for whether or not you will continue doing it. So those are just 2 things.
Well, you just answered my next question, which was about community, because I agree with you completely. And I wanted to talk about community for a second, because so many inspectors or people in any industry try to figure everything out alone. And there is a kind of transformation that happens when owners stop trying to navigate their business by themselves. And that I was going to ask you to expand on that, but I think that if there's anything else you'd like to add, but you kind of like jumped right into it before I could ask.
I certainly can expand a little bit. I'd love to, actually, if that's okay. I'll give some numbers for you. So there's a great book called Who Not How. And so if anybody needs if you're a reader like I am, and I encourage everybody to read books, go read that book, Who Not How. It kind of gives us the frame of mind to always start with who can help me rather than end up with I need help. And so if you're trying to figure something out in business, a smart question to ask is not what do I need to do or how do I need to do it, but instead, who can help me with this? Because you're going to cut out a lot of trial and error if you do that. But check out these numbers too. I'll just read them off because I have them readily available for conversations just like this. So if we have an idea or a goal, like it's just in our heads, just floating around, we have a 10% chance of accomplishing that goal. 10%. Okay, I'm not happy with that. 90% failure rate. So if we consciously decide that we will do it, we become more resolved, like we are sure we're going to get this done, then it goes up to about 25%. I'm still not happy. If you decide when you will do it, it's becoming a little more tangible. So now you're getting into the planning process. You're at 40%. If you decide how you will do it, you're at 50%. So if you know that you have a goal, you've decided you're going to do it, you know when you're going to do it, you even know how you're going to do it, you're still only at a 50% chance of accomplishing that goal.
Which could go either way.
Yeah. And I'm not happy with a 50% chance of failing at my goals.
I would like better than 50% chance.
Yep. And so if you commit to someone that you will do it, it jumps up to 65%. So that's a pretty big jump, 65. But I'm still I'm a numbers guy, I'm a data guy, and I also want to make sure that I pad my stats. I'm still not happy with 65%. But if you have a specific accountability appointment with a person or a group, such as a mastermind or a community, you have a very specific accountability process, 95%. And so 95% is a number that I could be happy with. And
That's pretty remarkable.
the only thing that's different is you've committed to the accountability with that group or with that person. That's it. And so if you want to nail 2026 as an entrepreneur or a business leader, you've got to decide what you're going to do, decide what and when and how, and then commit that to somebody or to a group of somebody's. And you just are stacking the cards in your favor at that point.
Yep. I'm not surprised by any of that, and I agree. I think it takes a village. And what I've seen change a lot over the past 10 years is it is groups like IEB where I feel like 10, 11 years ago, it was, I don't want my competition to know what I do or to know my secrets. And I feel like there's been, just as new people are coming into the industry, how just the industry is evolving, it's constantly evolving, that there's a lot more people who want to give their secrets, right? They want to share, they want to see other people succeed. They see the community as one instead of a bunch of, separate people out on their own island, like clinging on to, what they know works for them, but don't tell, Bob over in Austin what I'm doing over in Dallas.
Yep.
So, I agree, and that's why I wanted to talk about community, because I wanted to hear your take on that. And
Yeah.
Reaching a goal and knowing who to having that accountability. I know that, like, if I have an idea that I keep in my head, it's like, okay, cool, that's a cute idea. As soon as I like put it out there, then all of a sudden just putting it out there is like, okay, other people know that I might be thinking this. And so now it's real. And I think your explanation, your answer to the last question, like just take that further and further and make it, to get to where you're at that 95% chance of success. And
Yeah.
that's a huge difference from, what was it, 5%, 10%?
Yeah, it started at 10%.
Yeah.
And I have to point this out too. So it doesn't work the other way around. So if we have a 95% chance of specific accountability helping us, we have to be being held accountable to something. So those actually have to be done in order, right? And so that's why I say you can
can't
accomplish
just jump from 5 to 95.
Yes, exactly. And so
that
that's
would be
why
a neat shortcut.
I sure wish we could do that. Yep.
Yeah.
But that's why, like, some of this they can go do on, if you're listening to this, you can go do a lot of this on your own right now. Like, identify your goal, decide how you'll do, or decide that you will do it, decide when you will do it, decide how you'll do it, and then bring that to your coach, your community, your accountability partner, your mentor, whoever it is who's in your corner. And you get those chances as high as possible.
All right. Well, before we wrap, I have one last question for you. And it is what is one thing, just one, that you wish every inspector understood about building a strong business? One foundational thing. Just one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's hard to do just one, but
I know.
here's the one thing I'll go with. You are not a vendor. You are not a commodity. You are a colleague to everybody else in the home service industry. And so whether you're working with agents or other partners in the industry, you are just as high level and professional and business owner focused as everybody else. So we're going to stop as an industry, stop acting like we've been put in a corner or like what we do doesn't matter. And we're going to charge for what we're worth. We're going to act like we're business owners that are actual business owners with all of the great things that come with that. And when we speak to people, meaning when we're going after agents or other stakeholders, We're going to talk to them like we're colleagues. We're not going to go to them shy and timid or like we're trying to pitch something to them, but instead we're colleagues. This is how we build our industry.
Awesome answer. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate the clarity, the honesty, and everything you and IEB do to help inspection companies grow in a healthier way. If today's conversation got your wheels turning, take a look at the IEB Unite conference coming up March 4th through 6th. It's where a lot of these breakthroughs happen, face-to-face in real time with people who get your world. You'll walk away with at least one gold nugget that changes how you run your business. You can find all the details at iebunite2026.com, and I'll also share some other resources in this episode's show notes. Hope to see you there. One quick note before you go. Building a strong inspection business isn't about chasing every new idea. It comes down to clarity, solid systems, and learning alongside people who make you better. If this episode resonated, you'll hear a lot of these same themes at IEB Unite this March, with speakers like Nick Gramico of Internachi and other leaders shaping where this industry is headed. I'll add the details in the show notes. And if you're enjoying these conversations, make sure you're subscribed to Spectora Spotlight on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Finally, if you've got a story to tell or insights to share, reach out. We're always looking for thoughtful voices from across the inspection community. I'll see you in the next episode.